Sasquatch. Bigfoot. A legend surrounded with mystery and questions. Is it real? Or just a good campfire story told by generations? My team sets out to discover the truth about one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Through video and physical evidence and some personal experiences, we hope to learn what is really going on in the woods. Me and my team will stop at nothing to discover the truth. Because I've been studying something called the legend of the Downey Booger. And it was actually in Winston County, right here in Alabama. The way it goes is there's a couple of young men who's been out at a dance, and they're returning home, and from behind a tree out steps what they described as a tall, upright, hairy wild man. And it scared the horses. Their horses refused to go any further. They turned around and they actually had to go home another way. So, being teenagers, of course, their parents didn't believe them. Yeah, so until it happened again. There was a moonshiner who was on the very same road around the same time. And the moonshiner's delivering his payload, of course. So the moonshiner notices this same upright, hairy wild man following him. His first instinct was to run, but he remembered he's armed. So he takes out his revolver, turns and he shoots the creature. And he says it screamed like a wild woman and ran into the woods and disappeared. So anyway, he goes and tells the sheriff, and the sheriff forms a posse. And the posse tracks the creature all the way to a cliff where they assumed he fell off the cliff and perished, fell to his demise. But that's how the legend of the Downey Booger was created.
I wonder if there's anything still active up that way, today. You said Winston County?
Winston County.
You should look into that and just see if, how does it relate to today?
Yeah, we need to do a little research on it anyway.
Well, where would be a good place to start, just to start looking for something like that?
Start at the library to find stories.
Like old newspaper clippings kind of thing?
Newspaper clippings, stories of legends about them.
So I think we may take you up on that, John.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you get us in?
That sounds like a fun project.
Behind the key access?
Yeah.
Let's do it, guys.
But if we're going to do it, though, we need to do it right.
Dude, can we do like one of those 9 investigation things?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, come on.
I think that's going to be required.
Hey, it's Son. I found interesting information. Meet me at the library.
John's found us a great place at the local library so we can find out a little bit more about the Downey Booger.
I have found lots of great information on Bigfoot.
What we got?
Well, apparently the Cherokee and Chickasaw tribes both have legends
You're kidding.
about creatures that sound exactly like Bigfoot.
Really?
Yes. The Cherokee name for him is Sulkaloo, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Sulkaloo?
Yes, it means slant-eyed giant. And the Chickasaw have a story of another 10-foot creature with very long arms and a small head. The Chickasaw name for the creature is Lofa, which means to skin, because apparently it captured people and flayed them alive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
What's even more interesting than that is that the creature spoke to him.
Like physical speaking?
Told him he was invading his territory.
The Downey Booger has legs to its legend. Well, if it had a past, maybe it has a present and a future as well.
There are stories that go back to when the Native American tribes were recording this, and all of these articles, people are still citing this creature.
Yeah,
These are
so...
Winston County.
Really?
Yeah.
right where the Downey Booger story takes place.
Right. Speaking of that, I've been in contact with a local researcher. He claims to have an area in Winston County. You know, I've got some equipment ordered. It's not here yet, but he claims to already have a lot of equipment. He's going to show us the ropes, show us how all the equipment works, and show how he does his researching or how he does his investigating. So maybe he can teach us a thing or two.
Sounds like
Great.
Winston County is the place to go.
I think so. Well, that's where the legend of the Downey Booger started. So let's go to the source.
Yeah.
Also, since there are so many Indian legends, maybe we should try to find someone in the Cherokee and Chickasaw tribes that we can talk to, and maybe they can tell us more about these stories. Are they true stories, or are they fiction?
We're going to go head off and meet up with Paul. We have an
Gotcha.
investigation coming up. Do you want to come along?
No, I think I'm going to stay here and do some more research. There are lots of books left to go through.
Okay. Well, good deal. Appreciate it, John.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. We're meeting with Paul, who is a local investigator. He's agreed to share some of his encounters with Sasquatch, and then later on tonight, he's going to take us out to show us how to use equipment.
What was your first time like seeing one?
First time I had what got me started.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that day. I was, deer hunting on this 3,000 acre deer club that I had helped establish. I'd traipsed over every inch of it, knew it like the back of my hand. And there were 600 acres of it that was kind of like a gated off, private spot that you could go. And there was this one place I'd like to go to because I could sit on a power line and watch the tower. And from where I sat, it was 250 yards to the tower. And when it would get like this, I could still see the horizon, behind the tower. So if a deer walked across that, I could still see it and still have a shot at 5:30, And I'd been sitting there for a couple hours, about 4:30 in the afternoon, just getting, late. And I hear a vehicle coming down the road and, down there to the slough. And then in a little bit, I start hearing 22, they're target shooting 22 rifles, pow, 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 pow. And then every once in a while, one of them would go, woo! Pow, 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 woo! I was like, man, my hunt's, I might as well go home. It's ruined. I'm sitting on a 5-gallon bucket with a pair of shooting sticks. My vehicle was just 10 feet behind me, and thinking there's nothing that's going to come out. And they're doing their target shooting. And to the left side of me is a 18-year-old pine plantation that just been thinned. So you could actually see through the pines. And I thought, if anything, I could see a deer walking through those pines. And so they're still target shooting, pow, 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 woo! And then about that time, one of them shoots and he does the woo! And then all of a sudden to my left, I hear, woo! Hot shot. What the heck was that?
Out of fruit.
And so I look over to the pine thicket, and they're, walking through the pine thicket. It looks like somebody, a person. And I thought, man, the hell, my hunch, whoever it is doesn't know I'm sitting here on this bucket, and I got a high-powered rifle. So I stand up. They're only 100 yards. And so I stand up, let them know I'm sitting here. Well, when I said, hey, he kind of squats down next to a pine tree like he's trying to hide. I'm like, I don't think so. So I'm thinking, you ain't getting away. So I turn it up to full power, and I'm standing up, and I pull the scope up, and I look at it with my scope. And first thing that popped in my head was that's somebody in one of those ghillie suits, and they're poaching. And so take a few more steps, I pull up again, I adjust side focus, and when I adjust side focus, that's when I can tell that it's not. I can see it's hair. And I'm like, what in the hell? I take a few more steps, forward, and I pull up for a third time, and this time I focused on his hand, because he's holding on to an 18-year-old pine. And if you know anything about loblolly pines, an 18-year-old pine is about 12 inches in diameter. And his hand is almost like completely around, circumferenced around that pine. And I can see his thumb doing like this right here, moving up and down. And then it just, I don't know, he just kind of just backed up into the foliage and he's gone. And so I pissed me.
Our meeting with Paul was amazing. He showed us how his equipment works and some valuable tools to have a successful night. He's taking us to a special location in a few weeks where we hope to have our first night investigation. Today, me and the team are going to head deeper into the woods where several local encounters have been reported. We're going to go try a different area that we've not been in before. This area seems promising, but we'll see. We're just going to go see what we can see. Maybe we can find some structure or some other sign that there may be some activity down this way. Yeah, we're wondering if this is an area that would actually have some possible activity in. If they're human, maybe they think like us. So maybe the oldest, tallest tree in the woods might have some more significance to them. So let's go try to find it. We've been having some equipment problems. We've got cameras that are just happen to be just going off for no reason. We've got compasses that on our devices and equipment that's just not working. I don't know if there's an electromagnetic field or just a regular magnetic field, or there's something going on that's interfering with our devices for sure. So.
Because everyone's device has malfunctioned. How about yours? Did yours do it too? They've all turned themselves off.
Yes. Even the one that's recording right now has
Turned off and back on.
turned off.
Greg, here we are. We're in Georgia hiking in the woods. If you remember, right here is that time where your compass on your walking stick just started spinning like a top. And also, I had a camera on. Janice, you had a camera on.
Sure did.
Both cameras, fully charged when we first left and started hiking, died within a couple minutes of each other. In fact, I think our cell phones are even acting up too, right? Okay, and so I don't know what was going on, but I do find it interesting that here we are having equipment problems.
Right, and this is a phenomenon that happened to us over and over again. But what is also really interesting is what happened to us right when we got to the bottom of this hill.
We encountered these two ladies. They were on horseback. And this horse right here gets spooked by something. I don't know what, but watch that. Look how she's fighting. I mean, that horse is terrified. And obviously there's something behind us that it's sensing or seeing that we don't notice that's right there. You know, and one thing I know is that I have several friends who own horses, and they've told me that, you know, horses have been known to be able to sense things that are not there, that we may not be able to see, whether it be a feeling or just a sixth sense, you know, but this horse is definitely feeling something, and we had just come from that hill. I don't remember seeing anything up there, but this horse definitely does. And watch it again. Here in slow motion, boom, right there, those legs get locked, and it's like it's in attention, you know, and it's definitely something's going on there.
I tell you what, every time I see this video, and we've watched it so many times, I get chill bumps every single time. How about you guys?
Absolutely.
That's right. One thing this scene really brings home to me is the legend of the Downey Booger and what they experienced when they were riding home that night.
That's right. You know, I really think that this is a great piece of evidence because we have equipment problems, and then you have this horse getting spooked and just really startled. You know, I can't explain it, but it is definitely something. And so it's evidence nonetheless. We're gearing up for our first investigation here. Paul is here, and he's going to take us out. And, we got some equipment. This is our first gear that we've gotten.
We
got a stick. This is important.
It's a walking stick. It's a walking stick. It's very important.
Keep your balance up in the woods.
Oh, cool.
Truck cam. Parabolic. A truck cam.
Yeah.
More equipment to come.
We tell you, we don't have it. We don't know what cold is.
Night vision camera. This is going to be one of our essential tools when investigating Sasquatch or any other unknown mysterious legend that may come up in the future. So handy dandy recorder, so let's go see what we can find. If ever there's an area that's squatchy, this is it. I think a squatch should be able to get around and through here fairly easily if one is here. The woods themselves have just such an eerie feeling. It's hard to put into words other than it's creepy. It's just really creepy. We need to make sure that camp is tended to and that our campfire doesn't die. So we'll always have to have somebody back at camp, and that's where all of our radio and emergency contact information is.
So I've brought Greg to this location where I believe if there is something out here, it's going to be here. This is what I like to call the sanctuary.
How did this end up way up here when I mean, this could very well be natural fall, but at the same time, it just really looks weird. We've got a break in the tree right here, and it creates almost a limb right here. We have a couple of other limbs that are just leaned up against.
One thing some people in the Bigfoot field, X structures and what they consider is a boundary line. And I was up here about 3 weeks ago, we came across this. And as you can see, it looks like an X, but it does look like natural fall, but it does, you know, it's just one of those interesting things.
Yeah, this place is a treasure trove of either natural fall or lots of tree structures, either one of the two. Just came out of what we consider the sanctuary. It's full of trees that have been bent over or have fallen in a bent over position. But the running theory is that Sasquatch make tree structures, much like the Indians did long ago to mark the territories, mark boundaries, to mark where maybe it's good hunting grounds or where water is or shelter. I've seen some evidence in here of what could be some old Indian trail trees in this very spot too. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of connection between the Indian trail trees and what Sasquatch is doing in their tree structures. Paul has left for the night, but he showed us the ropes and he gave us some ideas on how the equipment works. So I'm going to go out and test our equipment and go on walkabout. But I've left Janice back at camp just in case something comes into camp or something comes in to kind of investigate where we were at, and also to keep the fire going. So I'm going to go see what I can find out and walk about. It's been said that Sasquatch rap on trees, and I'm about to try to imitate what Sasquatch would do. There's different reasons theorized for what they do. Perhaps it's to warn others, perhaps it's communication saying, hey, where are you? Who knows what it is. But let's give it a try and see if we get a response. I'm gonna contact Janice. I'm going to tell her I'm going to be doing a Sasquatch call here in a second. Greg to Janice. I'm going to be doing a Sasquatch call in 20 seconds. Thank you. 10, 9. Here goes nothing. I worked my way to the other side of the ridge. This clear cut, it goes for a long, long way, and I've had to cut through an area of real thick brush. There's a deep ravine right down in the hollow, and it was tricky getting up in the ravine. So we had to do the best we can.
Tonight's investigation was a success. The team and I hope to get some well-deserved shut-eye. Tomorrow, Paul is going to take us to a location some believe to be a Bigfoot marker. We hope to determine if this structure is real or not.
We were sent some video and footage of an X that somebody had thought was a structure made by Bigfoot. So we're just now getting around to checking it out. It's been maybe a year since the footage was sent to us, so we're going to see if it's still here. This part of it right here is rotted.
Yeah, see, it was here.
Yeah. This part of it rotted.
When you look at the picture.
Yeah. And this was up like this more.
No, this one here was up in the air. It was actually opposite what it is now.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
If you get and you look at the photograph, this one here.
It was going the opposite way then. It was going
yeah,
like
that's
this.
right. That's right.
It was going like this.
Yeah, it was going like that, and it broke. And when it broke, then that part fell.
Yeah.
This tree got pushed over, and as it was falling, it hit this tree, and when it hit this tree, it snapped midways. So when it snapped, it was falling, and it snapped, and the main trunk fell between, and the part that snapped fell backwards on top of it, because that right there is the top of the tree. You can tell the damage.
You can tell
right
the damage
there
on
at the base of where
the base
comes
of the
on
limb.
the base of the main trunk. And so it's not a Bigfoot territorial marker or an X, even though when I was first shown this tree, I thought that it was.
Yeah.
Until I came up and actually examined it and then looked at it, and then I saw this. And you see it's covered
in ash, yeah.
The soot, the char.
Ash, char, and soot.
And that's because this forest had caught on fire. The dozers came in, cutting the fire breaks, and probably when they came around or backed up or whatever, this tree was hit and it was knocked down, and it continued to burn to some extent even after it landed in its final position.
Yeah, so I think we can kind of mark this one off as being Bigfoot related. This is more natural fall.
This is a great example of us going into the field and looking at these structures.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people call them Bigfoot structures, these X's or whatever you might come across in the woods. We had this one here, and Paul just talked about it, and we were actually walked away finding that, hey, this is a natural fall.
Under this situation, it looks like it's at first going to be a Bigfoot X, but after a lengthy analysis, we just determined this was natural fall. One of the things that stands out to me about the structures that we investigated was the berm.
We are penetrating deep into what we think is the lair of some of these Sasquatch. We've come across these, I don't know what to call it other than a structure. It seems to be purposely built and does not seem to be random fall at all because it seems to be piled up.
Did you hear that?
No.
3 of them.
We're down there. This thing is probably 4 to 5 feet tall and about 50, 60 feet across. And it's just all these twigs, branches, and they're all woven in like it's been weaved together.
One of the things that really sticks out to me about this structure is that the makeup of the trees, sticks, and limbs, they did not fall in that immediate area. They were brought in. They were gathered from other places. And from the makeup of the trees, this is a pine thicket that we were in. It looks like they were brought in from quite a distance.
I agree. And, I really think that we can take away with this is that this is a plausible Bigfoot structure. I don't see this being a hiker structure. It's just too far deep in there. It took us hours to walk in there. And I just think that this is a great example of, coming across something, examining it, and determining what it might be. And I really think that this is a great piece of evidence that could possibly be a Bigfoot structure.
I agree. And one thing that puts the icing on the cake about this one location was that while we were there, we had the 3 knocks.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right.
We're on our way to interview a guy named Jason who's claimed to have a Bigfoot experience. There's something quite unique about Jason's experience in the fact that he's claimed to be able to have physical contact with a Sasquatch when he was younger. So we're going to, if we can ever get there, we're going to take his story. But from the looks of the interstate, I don't know if we're going to be able to get there on time. Can you tell the story about when you had your experience for the first time?
When I was a kid?
Yeah, when you was a kid.
We had a lot of things happening on the farm. I told you that, we had animals coming up missing, rabbits and guinea pigs taken out of the hutches that you had to have fingers to open. It couldn't be just some animal getting in there. They had those little locks that you lift up, slide over, and drop them in the notch. Those like door. That's what I had on the hutches. And I was having guinea pigs being taken, disappearing, and then we'd find the little brown carcasses on top of the barn roof and, weird places and notches of trees. And, we had big weeping willow trees in our yard, and I would find the guinea pig carcass hanging in the tree, And all we had around the pastures was a single strand of electric fence that kept the cows in and the horses in. They stayed away from it. Well, something was harassing the cows at night. So we'd run down there, we'd hear the cows running and bellowing and making all sorts of noise, and we'd go down there with flashlights and not see anything. My brother and 2 of his buddies and me and 2 of my buddies went down in the woods. Perfect Bigfoot environment, perfect. Fresh water, lots of deer, very rich, rich land. And so we went down in the woods looking for the cows. We hear this commotion, they're running, see them running through the woods, trees breaking, branches, and they're running. And my brother's nickname for me is Charlie. He's called me Charlie since I was a little kid. He's like, Charlie, run! So I hop up and I run like crazy up the hill. And we get to the barn and we're all out of wind and everything. And they start asking, what are we running for? And Jack says, my brother says, we saw big monkey people. And one of them chased us, is what he said. So they all started, giving him a hard time and razzing him, oh, you're crazy. Would you see Bigfoot? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But my brother would snicker, but you could tell he was troubled, Mm-hmm. So and he won't talk about it. You can't talk to him about that stuff. He won't talk about it. I've tried. I just tried last summer to get him to break on it. He won't do it. But so we're going to fast forward to the next summer. So that's 81. My cousin and I are go down and pick berries. So I'm picking along. A few minutes has passed. I don't know, 15, 20 minutes has passed, and I'm picking and I'm filling up my bowl. And you know, if you've ever gone berry picking as a kid, usually it's one in the bowl, two in the mouth. One in the bowl, two in the mouth. You know, and you know, so I'm eating and picking and I'm eating, and then, you know, when you pick blackberries, when you're pulling them off, you don't even really have to see them to know they're ripe. If they fall into your hand,
They're ripe.
they're ripe. So you know,
fall off in
so
your hand.
what you do is, you know, you're eating and you're picking. And sometimes you're not even looking at where you're picking. You see the berries, but you're looking at your bowl, and you know in your hands when the berry falls off, you got it. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm picking on the berries. And from this direction over here, from where Jerry had run up the trail, I hear a whistle. I hear a like that. It was louder, but it was like that. And I turn and I look and I'm like, knock it off, Jerry. You know, stop it, whatever, something like that. And I went back to picking berries. And I'm working my way down this, you know, down this bush. And I hear the whistle again. And so as I'm looking, I'm picking. And as I'm looking, I reach into the thicket, or reach to grab berries, I touch hair. So then I've touched snakes in the berry bushes before. I've touched bird nests. I've touched birds, you know. You touch a snake in a berry bush, you know that you're not touching a berry bush, you know what I mean? You know you're touching a snake, especially when you feel its skin rub under your fingers, you know. Well, when you touch hair, I'd never touched hair in a berry bush before, okay? So I was taken back, and I look, you know, I drop my hand, and I look, and what I see is I see this creature squatted down like this. I see its huge shoulder. I see the big muscle behind its neck here. I see the seam where the calf and the thigh are coming together, and it's doing this.
Kind of swaying back and forth.
Right, but it's swaying more this way. And then when I realize what it is that I'm seeing all this, but I'm not, you know, it's like I'm visualizing it, but it's not registering, you know. And finally, when I realize that, oh, there's its leg, and I see the top of its knee, you know, kneecap, and then this one, and then I realize that it's Bigfoot. Okay, that I've seen a Bigfoot, and when I see this thing sitting there in the thicket, all the breath I had in my lungs was immediately sucked out of me, and I'm like when you dream. When you're trying to scream in your dream and you can't make any noise, you're like,
almost like you're paralyzed.
That's what I was. Right? It felt like I was being squeezed, like an accordion. And I'm like, and I wet my pants and I shuddered and shook. And so I dropped my bowl and I fly out of there and I hit the trail, and you know, you run like, you know, like
you never run
your life depends on it, you know. Right. And I run home and I tell my parents, I've seen a monster, I've seen a Bigfoot. And my parents are like, what are you talking about? You know, like I said, realists.
Right.
You didn't see it. It was probably a dog that you saw, you know, and a bear is probably no. And you know, it's when you go to your, you know, the ones that care about you. My parents did the best they could. My parents love me, but when you go to them and you're telling them that I have seen something that doesn't exist, you know, there's no comfort there. You know, it's just like you need to just shut up and not talk about it. You imagined it.
Right.
I know what imagination is. I know what a bear looks like. I know what a dog looks like, and I know what a porcupine looks like. And this thing was huge. And it
leaped off the pages of mythology and into reality.
And landed in my backyard, you know, basically.
Landed right in front of
So, you know, from then on.
Landed into your blackberry bush.
And you're like, even though this creature didn't do anything threatening, didn't do anything to terrorize me or anything, it was just too much for my little 11-year-old brain to handle, you know.
Right.
So something kind of broke. And I started having nightmares. Started, you know, dreaming about Bigfoot, like how our house was. Our house was here, and then there was a little small grove of trees. There's a little hill here, and then my grandparents' house was here. And I'd have dreams that the Bigfoot would not allow me to get to my grandmother's. They would hang out at the very edge of those trees, And if I made one step towards, one step further, they would fly out of there like, like you see gorillas bluff charge, on all fours. And I would wake up terrorized, and I'd have these dreams about Bigfoot getting me. And these dreams carried on, into my teen years. And, because I was 11 then, now we're 14, 15, and I had nobody to talk to about this. I've learned, like we were talking earlier, I've learned how to talk myself down from the panic and not letting the 11-year-old boy take over. It's hard, especially, even talking about these experiences for me. As you can see, it's very
traumatic.
It's traumatic, and I can feel the welling up inside of me, and I have to, and that's what happens in my brain. It's not a welling up or like like an emotional thing that I feel in my brain. It's more of a panic thing. Right. And that's what Bigfooting has done for me, is it's learned to peel my onion, to not only face my fears when it comes to the Sasquatch, but face my fears when it comes to dealing with, my own demons, my own bullies, the people that have treated me badly, but also to tackle the guilt and the stuff that I've done, because I've got I got a lot to make up for in my life.
Yeah, storied past.
Yeah, I have kind of a colorful, patchy past, And
last night's interview with Jason was incredible. You could really feel the emotion as he was telling his story. Really gave our team a lot to think about. Overnight, me and Janice experienced some really weird things going on around camp.
We got in bed pretty late, but
It had to be around 30.
I kept hearing there was a whistling going on. It was like a...
Yep.
But it wasn't like a bird. It was like... It had a wind whistle to it. But
Yeah.
I just... the first time I came out here with Greg, we heard a whistling like that out, that
That's
way.
what you guys heard?
Yeah, and so...
I've never heard anything like that.
Did you hear it?
I heard it last night. I heard it over and over and over again.
There was a flash of light, and then you saw
Yeah.
that those beams afterwards.
Yeah. We were sitting at the campfire telling Greg about what we experienced with the smell that I still smell like. That's crazy. Anyway, and then you saw it out of your peripheral vision, and I saw it full frontal. It was right here over in the trees, and it looked like a flashlight was being shown up into the trees, and it was like a blue, and it was really big too. It was like up and then it goes down, and I was like, what was that?
I'm not sure what exactly we experienced last night, but it was interesting. Before we head home, we're meeting up with Keith Bearden, who has a very interesting story to tell us about his experience with Sasquatch.
I grew up hunting and fishing in Georgia for most of my life. Since I was small, I've been in the woods. I've been probably most counties in the state doing that, and all throughout the years there had been little things that would happen that you kind of just brush off, things like hearing howls or sounds that you couldn't relate to, and we would find hardwood trees snapped and twisted anywhere from 4 foot up to sometimes 7 or 8 foot. Then we started seeing these big bows. The trees would just be bent over, and we would how did that happen? And some of them would happen overnight. We had a hunter come in camp one morning and said, I keep hearing this. Sounds like a monkey or a gorilla. I don't know what it is, just like what you're in the zoo, and it was all around me, and I could never see it, but I could hear it walking. After a while, my son and I decided we were going to go down the middle of one nice, cool weekend morning and just kind of walk from one side of the property following the creek, and that's when we found our first actual track. I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that was always something I had in the back of my mind. Maybe it really was, but I really didn't think they were in Georgia, because I'd always heard they were in the Northwest, and the Northwest was where they lived in my mind, if they were any, or if they were still any around. But the reality sunk into me when I seen the track. I called a group, the BFRO, and they sent out a lady that I met with one day over coffee at a Waffle House local to the property that we were on. We talked about this and about what I'd seen, and she assured me that she had been involved in quite a few investigations, and that she had seen them and they were real. And I learned that there's a commonality to most everybody that's really in touch with the Bigfoot. that we all shared a lot of very, very similar, almost identical situations all across the country. The reality kind of grows until you actually see one. So when you see one, all shreds of doubt are gone, and that happened for me. Just catch a glimpse of something going through the woods, and I could actually see a shoulder and the back of the head as it moved through the thicket, and it was really big. I went over and measured it, and it was about 8.5 feet. And so I knew then, and we don't have bears. It wasn't a bear walking on its hind legs, but I would only catch glimpses. I would never see something full on. They're not what a lot of people portray them as on TV, and now it's that I've gotten as close as I've gotten to nature. I've tried to get out. Everything for me now is on a different level. Just my growing over the last few years has gotten to the point to where I do have regular interactions now, and as of today I've had probably hundreds of eye shine sightings where they actually come right up. They'll come up so close and you can see them blinking at night. Where I'm at now in my life and where I'm at now with the Bigfoot is I understand that they're a people, they're a type of people, and they're tightly connected with the land, and they're all about respect and about being good stewards. I know everybody has different perspectives and everybody has different ideas about Bigfoot people, but from what I have experienced, I can tell you they're not monsters. They're a type of human.
Talking with Keith gave us another perspective and introduced us to a new way of perceiving our investigations. We're going to try and make contact with someone who has a lot of experience investigating and get his opinion of the matter. Maybe we can gain some more insight and hopefully develop a broader picture of just what exactly is really going on.
Yeah, first, just wanted to say thank you for joining us. It's a real honor, it's a privilege, and I wanted to extend our deepest gratitude.
Yeah, no big deal. No big deal.
So what's been going on in your life lately?
My main focus, of course, is the North American Bigfoot Center. It's a Bigfoot Museum Research Center that I've organized not far from where I live. I live in the woods outside of Portland, Oregon, on the slopes of Mount Hood in the Cascade Mountains of Oregon, Northern Oregon. And so my wife and I founded the North American Bigfoot Center, which is a part educational facility, part research center. You know, we have a gift shop and stuff to kind of feed my Bigfoot addiction, you know, sort of thing, because, you know, you got to keep the rent paid somehow. So all of my focus really has been on that, and also spreading the word about it during public engagements. I travel throughout the entire country on a regular basis, doing speakerships and whatever else, a lot of public stuff, some private stuff as well. A lot of these conferences and that sort of thing, you know, so just kind of you know, spreading the gospel of Bigfoot, so to speak, you know.
How long have you been like researching and doing field research?
I've been doing field research since 1994. So what is that? 27 years, I guess, if my math is, wow, if my fifth grade math is correct. So yeah, so 27 years, and this next coming year will be my 28th, of course. But I was digging, you know, pretty hard into the books a year or two before that. So and taking it really seriously, because all my life I've been interested in Sasquatch. I mean, to some degree, because I'm a weird guy. I'm an eccentric person, always have been. And and so all those things, you know, UFOs and crystal skulls and all those fantastic things that I caught on documentaries in the 1970s as I was growing up captivated me as a little boy. But when I was in college, I realized, holy crap, like real scientists are doing something about Sasquatch. Not very many of them, but some. And so that kind of captivated me, because I'm interested in real science. I'm interested in how amateur, like citizen scientists, can contribute to what the professionals are doing, because the professionals are tied up in grants and, you know, paying the bills and satisfying their publication requirements from the university and stuff like that. Like in astronomy, you know, telescope time on these big telescopes, you know, Palomar or wherever, costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of grant time in order to do that. So the amateurs are the ones out in their backyards with telescopes scanning the sky. So the amateur astronomers make quite a number of significant contributions to professional astronomy. And I saw this as another opportunity for a science nerd like myself to participate in kind of a frontier sort of subject.
Would you really consider, you said that the filmmaking and researching is diametrically opposed.
At times, it certainly can be. It certainly can be.
would you consider yourself more of a researcher or a filmmaker?
Oh yeah, I'm not a filmmaker. No, not at all. Not at all. I own a camera. That doesn't make me a film, but that doesn't make me a filmmaker. We do Let me say this. I certainly participate in the making of films, but I'm not an editor. I don't care about lights. I'm not a gear guy. I'm not one of those guys. I care about the animal, Sasquatch, and that right there is probably in the top 3 pieces of advice I can give for anybody, whether they're doing research or making films. And that's a huge thing, because filmmakers, what do they say in the South? God bless their soul. What they do is they go out and they look for stories. And I'm not interested in stories really anymore. Stories with the story arc and all this sort of stuff, and a lot of times what happens is that real Bigfoot situations get dramatized and turned into BS essentially because of the filmmaker's lust for story.
As a researcher, what would be your ultimate goal? And given to the public,
Well, that's different. Again, you're asking a question that's incongruent to me, because you said, what's my goal given to the public? My goal has nothing to do with the public. I'm not doing this for other people. I'm doing this. I appreciate. I'm doing this for me. I'm not trying to prove the animals are real. I know they're real. And also really proving is going to come in the form of a bullet. And I have a firearm or two. I have my dad's firearm too. He's a sheriff, but I technically have 2 firearms, but I'm not a gun guy. I'm not a hunter. I don't hunt. And I certainly don't have whatever sort of rifle would be necessary to take one of these things down. So I can't really say that I'm trying to prove the animal's real, because I'm not willing to shoot one.
We're talking a lot about the traits of Sasquatch, animal, and whatever. If you were to take, flesh and blood human beings like us versus Sasquatch, what are some traits that differ between the two?
Size, shape, hair covering, foot and hand morphology. There's probably some physiological differences as well. Behavior, diets, probably breeding habits. Not really sure about that. Just go down the list. I mean, I mean, we're animals. Don't get that's some important. Right. We do everything they do. we're just kind of the weird ones in the family.
Would you say? I guess are they more humanoid like or humans versus?
Well, that's again as a false question. I'm so sorry to be so abusive to you guys so early. But just so you know,
what we want to do. It's what we're asking.
That's kind of like asking, hey, is that a coyote or a canine? You see the flaw in that question? Mm-hmm. It's the same question. Are they humans or apes? Humans are apes, period. That is our biological family. And we have shoulders for brachiation, which means overhead, like monkey bar stuff. We have fingers and toes. We don't have a tail. That makes us an ape. We are apes. There is no way around it. If you look at our behavior, there's dozens and dozens of noted ape behaviors in humans. That is our family. We pretend to be different. We pretend to be special, and we're kind of weird. We have jobs and pay taxes and stuff like that. But it's, at the end of the day, those are us. That's our family. We behave that way. We do everything they do, and they pretty much do most of the things we do too. Mm-hmm. So where the question is, where on the gradient are they? With gibbons on one end, because they're an ape, they're lesser ape. They're not really in the same family as the greater apes are, and then humans on the other side of the gradient. So you have everywhere in between, all these shades of gray. It's not this or that. That's a very flawed human way of thinking about things. This or that, a Republican or Democrat, up or down, like all these diametrically opposed things it's just nonsense. And it's a very limiting, shallow way of thinking about things. Because if you stand back, what you see, this side, that side, it's a coin. It's one thing. And so the question is, where on the gradient do they fit? And I think that's a fascinating question, and we don't really have good answers for it. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm trying to learn about them.
There's a group out there that says, okay, where's all the bones? Where's the bones? Where's the bones? Where do you fall in that category? Do you think that, we've already found the bones and just don't really recognize them?
I think there's very real possibility there might be bones out there somewhere, like in some museum drawer that's been misidentified, or something like that. I just the other day in the museum, I was telling a story about Memaloose State Park over here in Oregon on the Columbia River. There's a story from around the 1900 mark, in 1890s, 1910 or something like that. a little girl going over there, because Memalus, it means place of the dead. And these islands in the Columbia River before they put in the Bonneville Dam, that's where the native people who lived here would put their dead. They would just go put them in like these like miniature sort of long houses, or just put them out on rocks and stuff. And you could smell them up and down river, like rotting human corpses, essentially. And in the early pioneer days, like late 1800s and stuff, the white people essentially went out there and grave robbed. You know, they were picking up Indian artifacts and, you know, thinking that they're exploring, like explorer anthropologist folks, but really they were grave robbing is what they were doing. And they went out there and noted all, they took photographs. You can see photographs online of these things. But a little girl who went out there around that time with her uncle saw the giant's skull, for example. And there was, she measured it, or her uncle measured it, I believe. And we're not clear about what they measured, but they said the mandible was 13 inches. Now, the mandible, of course, is your jawbone. Right. Now, we don't know, it was 13 inches wide, 13 inches long, or 13 inches around the circumference. We don't know what they measured, or even if the story is true. But I think that there are probably either bones in collections right now, or perhaps were at one time or were lost. I think that's a very real possibility. But as far as where the bones are for Sasquatches, well, my answer is, where are the bones for bears? Bears are real. Why don't we find their bones? And people say, well, I've seen bear bones. No, you've seen bears that were shot and their bones. But to find a naturally dead bear or mountain lion or any other apex predator is extraordinarily rare. We don't really know what happens to them. It's not taphonomy. It's not how the animal decomposes. It's actually probably like pre-taphonomy. That's something that Grover Krantz suggested. And you're probably familiar with Grover Krantz's book, or you should be. So taphonomy, see, because when animals are sick, you know, we're animals, we get sick. What do you do when you're sick? You go to bed, you squirrel yourself away because you're vulnerable, essentially. And animals would do the same thing, but the risks are higher there, right? So they probably stick themselves into the thickest hidey hole they can probably find, and wait it out. And then one day they die instead of getting better like they have every other time in their life. And then within a few hours to a few days at the most, the scavengers would start moving in, and then eating the flesh and dispersing the body parts, one arm over there, one leg over there. The hair would be eaten quickly by moths. And the bones are actually eaten by pretty much everything in the forest. Wood rats eat bones, and deer mice eat bones. Deer mice are the most plentiful animal in North American forests by biomass. So that's a huge number of those things out there. Deer and elk actually eat bones too. That's where they get the calcium for their antlers. Yeah. In the North American Bigfoot Center here, I have a display on just this question, because I get asked all the time, where are the bones? And I have 2 photographs of elk eating bones. On YouTube, there's a wonderful, I think it's hilarious. Of course, I've got a really dark, weird sense of humor too. But you guys know what body farms are? Body farms are essentially forensic laboratories where you can donate your body after you die, and then forensic scientists can study how your body rots away under various conditions. And and they put bodies in bogs, they put bodies in the bottom of lakes, they put them in trees, they put them in everywhere, human bodies, and then study how they decompose over time. And that helps cops solve, like forensic guys, solve crimes later. There's a wonderful video on YouTube, if you can look it up, of a deer standing over a human corpse eating at its rib bones. It's hilarious. It gives a whole new perspective on Bambi, really. So so you know, so that's what happens to the bones. But let's put it in perspective now, okay? Black bears. I mentioned black bears earlier, and they're very important to Bigfoot study because black bears are the other large omnivore here in North America, right? So it's really good to study black bears to kind of glean some sort of insight into how Sasquatches live. Well, that's what I do. I'm interested in all sorts of wildlife sort of things. So I read this book, I think it was called Shadows in the Forest. I'm pretty sure, I think that's what it was called. And it was written by a team of black bear biologists in Idaho. And these guys were badasses. They studied bears 365 days a year. They had something like they had over 300 bears in their study, like 300, 350 bears, somewhere in there. Like, I don't remember the exact number, but it's not important. And 3 different study sites in Idaho. And it was a 13-year study, if I remember correctly. And over this 13-year period, they found, and these guys would go into the den during winter and tranquilize the bears and pull them out and tag them and do all that stuff and shove them back in. They were badasses, I'm telling you. And over 300 bears, like 350 something bears, I think. They found 1 naturally dead bear during their 13-year study. One.
13 years. Wow.
13 years. And bears have a natural lifespan of what, 15, 20 years in the wild?
At least.
So certainly a significant percentage of those 300 something bears died during that time. The bear biologists don't know what happened to them. And that one naturally dead bear they did find was in winter in the den. They had to dig it out. So, and you figure there's at least probably 100 times more bears than Bigfoots in the world. Sasquatches are very rare animals. They're very rare. And there's data suggesting that now based on the footprint cast evidence. We're tracking individuals over time. So the populations that we thought were larger, we're finding out are not. They're very, very small. There aren't very many of these things. So if there's 100 times more bears than Bigfoots, and these biologists don't know what happened to the bear bones, we really shouldn't expect to find Sasquatch bones.
Speaking of your encounters, have you ever experienced anything with like speech? And certainly you have with whistling, because we've heard you say that on some of your shows. But
yeah,
you just mentioned object throwing.
Yeah, I've never heard of.
Is there always an odor with it, or has any of them ever displayed any intimidation?
I've heard noises that I believe are Sasquatches, at least I should say, to be clear. I didn't see them do it, but I've heard them do some weird noises, but I've never heard them talk back and forth to one another. I've spoken to several witnesses who have, though. And this is beyond like the Ron Moorhead stuff. And Ron's a good friend of mine and I believe him and stuff like that. But Bobo and Matt have both heard the jibber jabber before. I've never have, though. I've heard them make noises that were I've heard them yell the word hey or something very similar to hey before. I've heard things that went, but I wouldn't call that speech, So about the speech thing, I've not heard it. I've heard some interesting, very human-like noises, but not speech. But I wouldn't put it past them to do that. I would like to hear it, but I just haven't.
What advice would you give, like if, to the new researchers coming along, the younger generation?
I've got a lot of advice and criticism for the Bigfoot community in general, honestly. The number one thing from a personal point of view is I would say do it for another reason than what you think. Do it, like go out to the woods. And this is just basic going out to the woods and researching. Okay. Go there for another reason. Don't go just to encounter a Sasquatch, because most of the time, unless you're fooling yourself, you are going to come back with nothing. And if that's your goal, then you're setting yourself up for failure. However, if you do have a goal of, I'm going to go fishing, I'm going to go mushroom hunting, I'm going to go for a hike, I'm going to go camping with my family and friends, I'm going to go tree identifying, or whatever that word would be. I don't know, being an arbor nerd, those are goals that are actually attainable. And Sasquatches might be there too.
Well, we don't want to keep you out, too long. So we just wanted to let you know we really appreciated your time.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's a good interview. I had fun with it. So if you do need me for something else, just let me know.
Oh, absolutely.
Our interview with Clift helped reassure the team that we were on the right path. Janice and I returned back to Winston County where the Downey Booger legend first originated. While there, our video equipment failed again. However, we did capture an interesting audio find that I cannot wait to show to Greg.
I want to show you this piece of audio that me and Janice caught. We're in Bankhead, and we're at the Big Run area where there's that clear cut section. And we're recording, and we did a whoop. Now, you're going to hear a canine beforehand. I want you to listen to what's behind that canine, so I'll go ahead and play this. It's just normal canines right there.
Right.
Canine? That is not canine. Now you'll hear the coyotes going off behind it. And it's like they're going back and forth with each other. And when we were there, you could feel it. It wasn't just a normal audio. It wasn't like just some like deep voice male roar. You could really seriously feel it like within your soul. It's hard to explain unless you're there.
It was absolutely terrifying. It seemed like it was about 50 feet away, but it was probably more like 100. But like he said, you could feel it more than you could hear it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was more of a feeling. It really was.
But what's great about this, though, is that you happen to be there and you happen to have your recorder going. Without it, it's just a good story. But it seems like you guys picked up a really good piece of evidence here.
I think it's a great find, yes.
Right.
Definitely.
Now I want us to look at the footprints that we picked up from Bankhead. Greg, if you remember, this is where me and you found those footprints. And then a couple days later, me and Janice actually went down and we casted this footprint. And so here it is.
Yeah, even though the footprint itself was rather old and, dermal ridges are not visible in this, it's still a really good piece of evidence because it gives a true representation as to how big this footprint really was. This thing is 16 to 16.5 inches long, 7.5 inches wide, and this is really one big footprint. It is huge.
If you take a look at the next one here, Greg, this, I believe, is a handprint found about 150 feet away from this print. Mm-hmm. Now, we have a little bit of spillage. The thing I used to make a cast didn't quite hold, so we have a little spill over. But if you take a look, I believe what we are looking at here is something has dug almost like this into the ground. Mm-hmm. Almost like it's kneeling over. Maybe it's getting ready to make a kill for dinner. Who knows? But I do believe that this is a handprint that's dug into the ground just by the way that these impressions feel. But you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 definite impressions.
Right. And this is another great piece of evidence, too. Again, this appears to be about the same age as this footprint, right? So with having a hand and a footprint both within a very close proximity of each other, I really think that the same individual made this print and this print.
Exactly.
Because this is a really big handprint and it's a really big footprint.
I agree.
So even though they're not perfect, still a great piece of evidence to show how big these things really are.
Yeah.
We're on our way to meet with a man who was raised off the land and lives the ancient ways of his native tribe. He has some information about the roots of the legend of Sasquatch and where the story may have originated from.
What I'm about to tell you doesn't necessarily cover them all, but this is what I was told for the tree people. That a long, long time ago, this is ancient times, and I'm imagining this is probably still in that realm of when animals could communicate with people and people with animals. There was one clan, and nobody can say for sure which tribe that came from, but there was a clan within the tribe that they were starting to get fed up with the way things were going, and I'm assuming that this is when everybody stopped praying and started killing without praying. And this particular clan, I don't think, was kosher with that, So they prayed and they prayed and they prayed. Finally, it was put in the heart of their medicine man that the only thing for them to do was to leave that tribe far behind, everybody that was involved in any of this far behind. And as they left the tribe, the Creator was so touched, and the Mother Earth was so touched at their honor and respect that they gave them what they wanted and turned them into part of the forest. They gave them, okay, here you are. They taught them how to. You're going to look this way from now on, but the reason you look this way is because see all these big trees? I'm going to give you the ability to use these trees to hide yourself from those hunters. The tribe that you're hiding from, that you're departing from, you don't have to worry about them anymore because they will not have the ability to find you ever. The reason everybody has such a hard time connecting with tree people is that mountain is his home. It's like that would be like you trying to find me here. If I didn't want you to find me, you're not going to find me, I promise you. Or anywhere, it doesn't matter. And it's the same way with them, and that's their home. They know everything, man, every little thing. And the Creator blessed them in such a way with the trees. I mean, I'm like you was talking about. They were saying he was peeking out from behind a tree. You know, that was a moment of weakness. He shouldn't have done that. They'd never known he was there had he not, you know, been peeking around and stepping out. He wanted to be known, and that's why he wound up being known. But yeah, the tree people in there everywhere, they could be watching you right now.
There is things out there that they don't want us to know about. They don't. It's not necessarily if I believe in them.
Yeah, and it's like the way they bury their dead and everything.
Yeah.
You won't never find
No,
them.
and
They're
there
under
is so
trees.
much stuff out there that we don't know, and we don't need to know,
Right.
but they want to know. Why is this doing this? Well, that's just the way it is. Just leave it alone and let it go the way it's supposed to go. The Creator knows what it is for. We don't have to know everything.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody has to know everything. Everybody wants to know everything.
And they're really smart. The Creator has given them, the tree people, such a just a connection to knowledge of, I guess you could say, common sense. You know, and common sense, I've heard people say here lately, especially the last few years, oh, common sense is rare these days, and it's pretty obvious.
It is.
And the way, because of the way humans are being, and like people going out, you're not going, unless they want you to find evidence, or unless you're really lucky and catch them in a moment of weakness, like where they accidentally stepped on that mud spot or stepped over here in this thing, whatever. But as far as like finding their dead, their bodies of their dead are so sacred to them. They don't pull trees up to give sign to anybody. If you walk up on a tree that has been pulled up, they can pull that tree. All right.
Bobby taught us a lot, and he gave my team a new sense of respect for the forest. I know one thing. This journey has shown us there is much more to discover, and I have a feeling this isn't the end of the story. We have one last night investigation planned to attempt contact with whom Bobby calls the tree people. It's been a long journey, guys. We got the experience.
Right, and I think we have come to the point where we have also gotten over the fear factor.
Right.
I mean, there has been times when I wanted to hightail and run, and
who wants to go walking through the woods at night with like no lights,
and then have something come up on you. How many times have we been out and something's come up all like close and we can see it?
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's got to be some of the freakiest things. And I can't count the number of times this has happened. Something's been walking through the woods, and you're like, okay, I've got to see it, I got to see it, got to see it, got to see it, and nothing's there.
That's the freakiest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know. That really freaks me out, because all your senses, you know, your sense of hearing, your sense of fight or flight, you know, that's ramping up, and all of a sudden, there's nothing there.
Doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense at all. The plan we got, we're going to go down the trail that you guys were on a little bit earlier today. It leads to a cliff, and I think it'll be a good vantage point for us to do our final investigation.
I want to show you, there's a trail tree up there. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but it clearly marks the direction of the trail. And so I think it's a great vantage point, like you said. So
Okay.
I hope we see something.
Yeah, good deal. Me too. Hope we have some kind of action.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
How much? I mean, every time we have come out here, we've had action.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of the reasons why we stopped coming here is because we all three felt like it was a little more on the spiritual realm.
Right.
Maybe we were wrong.
You never know. But that's what the investigation's about.
Right.
All right, let's go to it.
Right. It's going to be exciting.
Time to wake the squatches. Let's go. this is the way we need to go. I think this is very close to the place where Brent and I had some rocks or acorns or something tossed at us a couple of years ago. It was really my first experience with something being tossed at me, you know?
So Greg has just videotaped something in the woods. Something that stood up on 2 feet.
There's nothing really large out behind us.
But it did sound like something. You could hear it for sure.
What it looked like it did is it looked like it was crawling, stood up, checked us out, and then went back down, crouched back down, and started crawling away.
It just disappeared. It was
And
on
then
thermal. We recorded the
yeah,
thermal
we got it on thermal.
But,
It just freaking disappeared.
But we could still hear it moving when it disappeared.
And this is exactly what we were talking about earlier, where you would hear something, hear something, hear something.
There it goes again.
Yeah, you would hear something, hear something, and then there's nothing there. So, I don't know what this was.
I mean, it clearly stood up on 2.
Right, and it was a fairly large target, whatever it was.
One thing about tonight, with this wind and all this noise pollution, something can easily sneak up on you. You wouldn't know it.
Yeah, the wind is not working in our favor tonight. Not at all.
But is it? I mean, to me, I think it would be kind of like if we want to experience something, it is in our favor.
Well, it's going to sneak up on us, whatever it is. We've got a combination of lights. We've got some that are intermittent flashing lights, and we've got some that are steady burn. That's it.
But I don't see it with my naked eye, do you?
Right, no. The ones that are intermittent flashing, I'm not too worried about because those can be easily explained. The ones that do concern me, and the ones that I have personally have experienced throughout this, is the ones that steady burn. Now I've only seen one today that's steady burn, and it's back over in this hollow, back this way. Now it stayed there for a while, and it kind of moved back and forth a little bit. So, you know, those are the things that we encounter. Now it was fairly bright from where we were. I think we got it on camera. I'm not sure. We're going to have to go back and look, and you know, in post we're going to have to see if it actually caught up. We were going to go off deep into the woods, but again, there's this phenomenon where, you know, I guess some call it instinct, some call it mind speak, whatever it is, we've sort of gotten a message not to go. So I think we're probably going to call it a night, since they don't want us to go up on the hill. They've allowed us to film them. Whatever it is has allowed us to film them.
Right.
We've had something to crawl up on us.
Oh my gosh.
And it seemed like it was crawling, and then kind of peeked up, and then ducked back down, and then
it just disappeared.
Disappeared. It just disappeared.
Didn't exist. And we
disappeared
could hear it.
off thermal.
Did you hear that?
Right. So I think whatever it is has come up. They've checked us out.
Yeah.
Whatever was that crawled up on us is, well, I don't know if it's still there. I don't know what's happened to it, but I don't hear it anymore. Which kind of tells maybe it's still just sitting up there. I don't know, but I'm not going to go up there. So I think we might call it a night and be done with this legend. So it's been fun. It's been interesting.
Didn't let us down tonight.
No, it didn't let us down at all.
Oh my God.
Our final night investigation in Georgia was a blast. In true fashion, it did not disappoint. But we really did not know the full extent of activity until we reviewed the evidence.
saved the best evidence for last. So I want to start off with, this is that light that we caught on that camera. We rented a camera with a high ISO, which lets in a lot of light. And I want to play you this clip and let you see it. I'm just going to let you see, if you see what I see. And then the last clip I want to show you, I can't wait, because you guys haven't seen it, but I was messing with some stuff.
You've been holding out on us.
Oh, you have no idea. Okay. But here, let's start with this one. You just tell me what you see. And I want to see if you capture it.
What is that?
You see the second one there that just came in? I don't know, man.
I didn't see that before.
No, there's definitely a separate.
Yeah, there's two. What?
You see it?
What is that? That is
All right,
two.
there's two.
There are two
separate lights. Now, in the camera.
Two separate lights.
While we were there, if you remember, it only looked like just the one steady burn. And that's what we were talking about the whole time. But there's definitely two.
Yeah. There's clearly there's two. It's unmistakable.
But you can definitely see a second orb there, right there. Especially, look at that.
Wow.
And did you see a second ago? Okay, I'm going to roll this back here. I just noticed that. It almost looked like it blinked or went off right there. Do you see that?
Oh my God!
I'm playing in slow motion. That's crazy.
Is amazing. Because when we were there, I could have swore that there was only one light.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely, I try to wrap my mind around it. Is there something in between it? But no, because it's definitely moving. And
right.
I mean, there's definitely two. I don't know. This is weird. If you think that's great, wait till you see this. All right, so this is one of the last clips on the camera from that night. I'll preface it with this. So you remember, this is right after you saw something in your IR camera, the one that you had, stood up, sat down, disappeared, whatever. But it was there, and then it wasn't there.
Right.
Then we turned the camera around, and that's when we started capturing that orb. The only thing we saw that night was this orb. At first we didn't see it, then we did see it. First we saw it through the lens. Well, look what else was there. I'm just going to play it. You see it?
What
There's
is
the
that?
orb.
Yeah, I see the orb.
You see the thing
what
crawling around?
I want to know is what is that in between us and that orb?
You see the thing on the ground? Now, what it looks like to me,
Yes, I do, Brent, and it's very disturbing.
What it looks like to me is that something is crawling in. If you remember, Jason said when he had his encounter that something was doing this. Look, does that not look like something, almost like a gorilla or something doing this, walking in?
I mean, it's obviously crawling. You can see a head. You can see shoulders. You can see elbows and arms.
And what's
Brent? There's something crawling in between us and that orb.
Well, watch this orb though. I'm going to play this in slow. Look how bright this thing gets. I mean, it gets incredibly bright.
Brent, is there a connection between orbs and a Bigfoot?
Well, I mean, we have to figure out what the heck that orb is. I mean, what is that? I mean, is it an energy? I mean, look how bright that is. Notice that we captured it on camera somehow and then left. Right. I'll also tell you this. That night, we had maybe 20 files on that camera that I took. Out of those files, this is the only file that has no audio. The audio is static.
Really?
Interesting.
Didn't pick up any audio. It's just static. It's just fuzz.
Well, that kind of goes back to the rest of the electronic interference that we've been having.
Another oddity.
Almost all of our investigation.
Exactly.
And from the looks of things, it looked like, he was crawling out, sort of spying on us, and then all of a sudden he realizes he's on camera and don't know where to go. He's like, where do I go?
There's definitely something there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there is something there the camera does not lie. It's there. The question is
what is it? Yes. Whatever it is, it's watching us. And
right. We were being
I cannot wrap my mind around it because it's like, I don't know.
I mean, on one hand, it's exhilarating that we caught something that's magnificent right here on camera. Yeah. And I firmly believe that our experiment with using non-IR equipment worked.
Right. Yeah, and that's the one thing I wanted to try is because you have all these reports of how they, supposedly can tell about IR or CIR and it keeps them at bay or whatever. So I wanted to try to find something that we could still capture something that wouldn't scare them off or whatever.
Right.
So
And
looks
to
like,
me, after we've enhanced this a little bit, it looks as good as any FLIR.
yeah, it's incredible.
It's terrifying.
Right. I mean,
But-
like I said, on one hand, it's exhilarating. On the other side, it's terrifying because we never saw it, we never heard it.
No, but I think it really, you know, I think this whole experience has been amazing. We've learned a lot. We've done a lot.
That's for sure.
And, you know, we've really been able to take the legend of the Downey Booger and explore it. And I, you know, really think we found something, but I don't think we're done.
Oh, absolutely not.
I mean, I want to know more about this and what it all means, you know. So, I mean,
Right.
I think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Now, it's on to the next.
Oh, I know.
We gotta find out what
that is right there.
We gotta find out what that is.
I think we really set out on a journey to discover the mysteries behind the Downey Booger. And I think we've come a long way. You know, we've really grown as a team. We've grown individually, and you know, I don't know that we solved it necessarily, but you know.
And as far as the legend of the Downey Booger, I am satisfied that they were talking about a modern day Sasquatch. I think they actually saw one.
And so, case closed.
Case closed.